The news around Netflix buying Warner Brothers just keeps getting crazier because now we got a ton of great updates about the future of the DC universe, but also some really bad news about how this whole Warner Brothers situation could get a lot worse. Let's get into it all. Now, starting with the good news is that James Gunn and Peter Safran, who runs DC Studios with James Gunn, their contracts have been extended to spring 2027. So no matter what happens in the future, how anything goes down, James Gunn and Peter Safran will still be running DC Studios as they are right now. We're going to be getting Superman, Man of Tomorrow, and the Batman Part 2 and all those projects. 2028 leaves a big question mark, but I'd assume things are going to go well and they're going to get extended again. And just earlier today, James Gunn came out in a new interview with Bloomberg after this news of Netflix acquiring Warner Brothers, or at least trying to. We'll get to that a little bit later. But James Gunn said that, hey, the theatrical releases are still incredibly important for DC Studios no matter who owns them. He said the communal theatrical experience is something that is incredibly important and remarkably well suited to our big spectacle films. Now, if you watched yesterday's video, you know that the CEO of Netflix has come out and said that yes, he's going to keep Warner Brothers movies that are planned to go to theaters in theaters, although the theatrical window of how long they're in theaters might change and evolve over time. But we also have to remember this is the same guy that came out and said when Barbenheimer was happening that, hey, it would have been just as big if it happened on Netflix as it was in theaters, which is simply just not true. Like, I understand he's in charge of a streaming company. He's going to say this, but it's really just something to keep in mind. Like, yes, we have James Gunn until at least 2027, and IMAX's CEO has said that DC Studios has a contract with them until 2029 for all the movies to come out in theaters. So for the near future, we are set, but after that, it's really a huge question mark on what Netflix is going to do. And some other updates from this new Bloomberg article we got are some confirmations on when upcoming DC films are going to start filming. So Man of Tomorrow is going to start filming in April, and that is releasing in summer of 2027. The Batman Part 2 is filming in May, and that releases in October 2027. And we also got revealed that Superman made $100 million in pure profit, including all the digital sales, theaters, everything combined, which obviously isn't like an insane amount of profit, but it does prove that yes, this movie did make money despite what all the Snyder fan base wants to think. And yes, as you can see here, Bloomberg is speculating that a Penguin season 2 is going to be in the works, which takes us back to the CEO of Netflix because he said that DC Studios should make more TV projects like the Penguin. He said you should think about the ways that you can explore all these IP universes beyond that of just making tentpole movies. Examples would be some of the earlier movies from the DC universe for things like the Penguin that have turned into a great television series. And like I said, if Netflix is sticking to what they're saying and they're actually going to keep DC films in theaters and we're just going to get more projects that are higher budget productions like the Penguin and stuff out of HBO Studios now that they're backed by Netflix, this would be really good. Again, all this kind of comes down to how much you want to trust the words of a CEO of a company that has said things that are directly contrary to this in the past, but there is a new wrinkle in this entire Netflix Warner Brothers saga, and it's now that Netflix might not actually end up with the company, because as of right now, they are just in an exclusive agreement with Warner Brothers. They haven't technically purchased them yet. That's going to take over a year. And there's a couple steps that go into this. So the first key is that a Trump administration regulator has come out and said that Warner Brothers Discovery is far more likely to collect its $5.8 billion breakup fee than getting this Netflix deal through the regulatory process. Which, if you don't know, this $5.8 billion they're talking about here is pretty much what Netflix is going to be paying just to be in these contract talks with Warner Brothers and have the right to buy them. So even if it gets turned down or shut down by regulators, they are going to have to pay this $5 billion, whether they end up with the company or not. And if Warner Brothers ends up backing out of this deal at this stage, they have to pay $2 billion to Netflix. But like I said, this keeps getting crazier here. And I think there's a lot more levels to this than what we thought on the surface, because now the CEO of Warner Brothers, David Zaslav, is apparently signaling that he is open to an increased bid from Paramount and Skydance now. And again, this is because of different pushback they're getting from different regulators, the Trump administration, and they're like, okay, we see that the Trump administration doesn't seem like they want to approve the Netflix deal. We're open to Paramount coming back in here. It's kind of a win-win for Warner Brothers. They either get bought up by Netflix or they don't do it and end up getting paid more by Paramount. And as I mentioned there, yeah, Paramount is now looking to do a hostile takeover of this company, pretty much going above the management and ownership of Warner Brothers straight to the shareholders and be like, hey, we're going to pay you $30 per share for the entire company, because Warner Brothers also owns a ton of cable networks that are a huge part of why the company's in debt, which Netflix wasn't buying in their offer. But hey, Paramount's coming in and saying like, we'll buy all of this and give you more money for it. But the wildest piece of this entire thing, I warned you, it gets really crazy, is that now people are theorizing that Netflix knew that this was not going to actually pass any different regulations, and the Trump administration, they've openly come out and said that, hey, if they don't go with Paramount, there's going to be a lot of pushback to this because Trump is buddies with the Ellisons who own Paramount. So people are thinking that Netflix is making this bid as a win-win scenario for them because they're pretty much saying, hey, we know this bid has a very small likelihood of actually getting passed, but in the meantime, this is going to hold up Warner Brothers or it getting sold to any other company for probably up to 2 years of it going through different regulatory reviews. In addition to this stopping Paramount or another company from buying Warner Brothers, this also kind of freezes Warner Brothers from doing different things, making any massive moves in the meantime, because they're kind of in limbo of kind of being semi-bought by Netflix, but waiting for this to actually go through. So while yes, Netflix would have to pay $5 billion no matter if this gets approved or not, people are saying like, hey, Netflix is worth $440 billion. $5 billion is really a small chunk of change to pretty much stop multiple competitors because you're freezing Paramount from buying the company, you're stopping NBC Universal from buying them, and you're also holding Warner Brothers in its place. So it's pretty much paying $5 billion to freeze competition for multiple years, or it passes and you end up with a monopoly. And this is how businesses as big as Netflix always make moves. They win no matter what happens here. Like I said, $5 billion to them is not that much in the grand scheme of things. They either freeze the opponents or they end up actually acquiring Warner Brothers. It's a win-win for them either way. Honestly, our best hopes going forward is that this review process does take as long as Netflix is hoping on it, and it takes like 2 to 3 years or something, and it's just stuck in limbo for a very long time, because honestly, you do not want Paramount coming in and taking over this company either. They've been very open. They're like, hey, yeah, we're just going to push our straight up political agenda. We're going to change things. James Gunn would probably not be sticking around at DC if Paramount acquires them. So this is going to be a very long process. We're not going to find out the end result for a very long time. Like I said, as of right now, Netflix is exclusively talking to Warner Brothers and they have all the arrangements set to acquire them, but it has to pass all these different things first, which is going to take a very long time. Now, if you want to hear way more about this that I talked about yesterday, click the video above my head right now. Or if you want to hear about some insane Batman Part 2 news and new castings we got, click the video at the bottom of the screen, and thank you for watching.